Welcome Year 9 to this new topic. The topic itself is called quadratics, but before we actually look at quadratics, I'll just write that up the top, we need to just do a quick review of factorising, and we'll look at a few different ways to factorise. The first video, this one, is just looking at really basic factorising, something that you would have begun in Year 8. This is factorising by identifying the highest common factor in the terms that are in the expression that you're looking at, and then taking that highest common factor out of the expression, and then the rest of the remaining expression, whatever multiplies by that highest common factor, to create to produce, I guess, the original expression, I should say, that is left inside the bracket. That probably didn't make sense what I just said, but we'll go through a few examples to make it a little bit more clear. So there's a couple of just dot points to jot down if you wish. That is, identify the highest common factor. Sometimes we call this the HCF for short, instead of saying highest common factor every single time. Second point, that needs to come out of the bracket. Let's have a look. Here's some examples. So if we've got something like 2x plus 4, what we want to do first is work out what number or what factor goes into both 2x and goes into 4. And looking at that, hopefully you can see that my highest common factor is a 2. What's left in the bracket here? Well, basically what I'm asking myself is, what do I multiply by 2 to get 2x? 2x means 2 times x. What do I multiply by 2 to get 4? I multiply by 2. So these two expressions here, they are the same. One is factorised. This one here is now factorised. So that is the process that we're going to do for the next few examples as well. This one here, 6x plus 12. What is the highest common factor there? 6. What's left inside the bracket? 6 times what is 6x? 6 times what is 12? And there we have 6 bracket x plus 2. This one here, highest common factor, so what goes into 5x, but what also goes into 20? 5 goes into both of those. 5 times x gives me 5x. Be careful here, I've got a negative, so 5 times what gives me negative 20? 5 times negative 4. This one here is a little bit different because, as you can see, we've got pronumerals in both of these terms. So we've got an x in both of these terms. So that means that the x itself is also a common factor. This is being multiplied, isn't it? I can put a little dot there to represent my multiply. So if this one here is being multiplied by x at some point, and that one's also being multiplied by x, we can say that they are common factors. So when you see letters or pronumerals that are in common in each of the terms, they are common factors as well. So they also need to come out of the bracket. So this one here, I've got 2 and I've got a 4, so therefore highest common factor there would be 2, but I've also got the x in common. What's left here? I'm left with a y, because 2 times x times y would give me 2xy. What am I left with here? 2x times 2 gives me 4x. Copy these down into your notes if you wish to have them before we look at the last. Here we go, 3 more. I'll start off with this one on the bottom left. Now this one here, I do have a negative, but not to worry, we'll do it exactly the same way as before. We might need to just do a little trick at the end just to make it look a little bit nicer. So here I've got a negative 20 and I've got 4. So what number goes into both of those? 4 goes into 20, so the highest common factor must be 4. And what I'd be left with here would be negative 5y. And this would be 1, because 4 times what gives me 4? 4 times 1 gives me 4. Now, you don't often see this in a bracket putting the negative at the front. What you will most likely see is it rewritten like this, so that we don't have that negative at the front. That doesn't look very nice. Let's move on to this one here. What is in common in these two? Remember, we need to check the pronumerals. We also need to check the numbers. So I've got 5 and 20, and 5 goes into 20, which is nice. Oops, before I do that, what letter do we have in common? This is a times a, that is 20 times a, so we've got an a in common as well. 5a times a would give me 5a squared. 5a times what would give me 20a, 5a times 4 would give me 20a. So that one there is now factorised. And finally, we have this one here. Is there a highest common numerical factor? Is there a number that I can take out? There is not, because look, this is 1, that is a 6. So the highest common factor really here is 1, and I'm not going to take a 1 out, unless of course it was negative. I could do that. What have I got in common here? I've got pronumerals in common. I've got a times a there, and I've got 1a here. So I'm going to take the a out. What am I left with? I'm left with 6a. When I expand this out, when I multiply this out, I will get that original term, and now minus 1. A times 1 would give me a. And that's it. So hopefully that rings a bell from some of the stuff that you've done in year 8. And it does, it's very, very important, I should say, that that you get a grasp on factorising before we start quadratics. In the next video, we'll look at factorising trinomials. Thanks very much.